Last year I cured my tobacco hanging up in the rooms, and I've got a little video on that. This year I wanted to do it inside because a lot of reasons. I'm going to kind of work through this fast. I'm going to work some of it backwards, show you the finished product here, and then kind of how we got to here from the cured out leaves. So anyway, this is from last year, 2023, and it is packed. It is packed in there. This jar was up to about there, and I've smoked that much of it. Last year, I used about that much, like a jar. It's like a big candy jar, like that, like for the years. Tobacco, because I smoke in a pipe, a little small pipe. So last year, I've got that finished. It's 2023, and then also, what else did I have? I had more of that. Yeah, these 2023s, they'll get chopped up and processed to be down to smokable like that, and I'll show you how I did that. These are in separate jars now, right now, because they had been a little moist. I could feel the moisture level was a bit much, and I could see some mold growing on the edge of a leaf, and so I split that jar up. It was real compact in there. The leaves were stretched out, folded kind of long ways. So I put them in here looser into two different jars to let that, and I had let those leaves lay out for about an hour, even, and then they kind of dry up some in an hour, and then I get them back in their jars loose. And then once that moisture level kind of evens out in there, and the more moist parts saturate the more dry parts just through the air, it gets humid in there. These are like miniature humidors, and to get it just at that right level. Then I'll probably go ahead and get them processed from leaf form down to here. I'll show you real quick how I do that. I've messed around a lot of different ways, and yeah, so that's 2023. And then I've got these jars of, this is 2024, that is, yeah, it's getting to be nice. That one is. So yeah, no, this is loose in a jar, because the same as those others, I was just wanting to even the moisture between parts of the leaf that still had more moisture in them and parts that were leaning towards dry. So I fluffed them and put them in a loose jar where they can do that real slowly. Don't want them to dry out completely at all. So what I do to process this stuff, got one of these paper cutters, and we'll take those leaves. I actually had a little video about this too, but I'll just do a little, you'll get the idea here real quick. You can get a bunch of leaves and you get them out long ways like that. Under your paper cutter, and just, I'm doing like little, if they're flatter, it's easier. But anyway, I'm doing little slices like that, and that'll get them, about like this. Then you can take little handfuls like that, a couple handfuls, and stick them into the bullet blender, and just, do it. If you put too much in there, it kind of, stops up. The top doesn't spin, the bottom parts spin. So, I ended up filling it up about that deep, full of this kind of stuff, and turn it into whatever texture you want. You can do it finer or less. So that's how I do that part. Anyway, not going to be needing that. Nor this for that matter. Because what I'm going to show you is the way that I'm bringing these green fresh leaves into the house. And last year I had hung them up, strung them up. They were strung up all around the room up in here. And my room is not a humidor, because you want this stuff to ferment a little bit while it is drying out. And if it dries out too fast, when those leaves are green, that fermenting process, that breakdown process stops. And let's get this out of the way. Yeah, that breakdown process stops. The fermenting, it's kind of like slow, almost like slow composting or something, except so slow that it doesn't get rotten. But so anyway, instead of hanging them up there, it was always so important to hang them up back of the leaf to back of the leaf, front of the leaf to front of the leaf, so you try to keep an airspace between them while they were hanging. And what would happen in the house here, I don't have a humidor building. I'm not going to build a humidor building or a big box or a cabinet or something to do that in. So I just didn't want to take up any space. So to keep them separated, and really it holds them out really nice and flat too. I did this thing with paper towels. So I've got some green leaves here. These ones actually had been laying out. You know, I've been working with them for, oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. And then I had some leaves in here that were harvested just yesterday, actually. So the cool thing about the paper towel thing, it keeps them separate, a little bit of air flowing in between, and they lay out, you know, they can just lay out like this. See, these, all those yellowish ones, those are all ones that from a few days ago. Now here's the green. This, yeah, this is. See, now my plants this year, I didn't grow quite as many plants. Maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 10 or 12 plants. And but that's going to be fine. I mean, it makes a lot of tobacco, and like I always say, you know, in any times, tobacco has always been money, right? It's always been, I mean, like gold or silver. It's like a currency. Always has been a trading value. And almost no matter what culture you were in. So, so I think it's like, well, money grows on trees sometimes in a lot of ways. So I can get a lot of leaves spread around in a little area like this. And the reason I like to be able to do a lot of leaves in a little area like this is because it is kind of a paradox, because you want to dry them out, but you want to dry them out so controlled and so slowly. So one thing about drying these out, you'll notice each of these leaves is noticeable on the bigger leaves, that there's a big fat vein on there, and that vein is, this one on this leaf is about a 1/4 inch thick. It's big, and it has a lot of moisture in there, a lot of water. And what I've discovered is that if you leave all that in there, it takes so long for that part of the plant to dry out that it tends toward molding. So we want it to dry out all of it as evenly as possible, all throughout the leaf, you know, from the mid vein out to the edges. We want it all to be kind of drying off slowly and changing color. So what I started doing was, and usually I'll lay this down. Well, here, let me get a flat surface. What I'll do with these leaves, it's kind of like celery. It's got long fiber veins and things, so I can take a little nice sharp knife and go in there and just kind of slide, I push and real hard. So I'm just holding this end real tight. It's getting a little deep down towards the leaf. I aim the knife up a little bit. So I just slice off a big chunk of vein, a little piece left right there. And it kind of shaves it flat on the back ribs. And then I just throw that in a whole pot over there to dry out, because I'll take those old parts and pieces like that, and I'll make an insecticide out of that. nicotine tea. So, yeah, so I'll pull them in, you know, from the garden out there, and when I'm laying them out here, you know, I try to get them all to flatten out. Some of them are trying to curl on the edges a little bit, and I try to get them all flattened out. And that way, you know, with the paper towel holding them down, and they're all holding each other flat. Because like when they're hanging up, they start curling, right? They curl in on themselves, they'll fold in, they'll change shape, and start hanging and sticking to other leaves, and then you end up getting mold problems because it's air not being exposed to it all. So this thing about doing a bunch of leaves like that in a box has been really cool. Now you might think this is insane. People would think this is insane. You just have to really want to grow your own tobacco to go through all this. But what I'll do is, once these things are, you know, brought in like this, and I still need to sit down with these, and even the ones like this, I'll take that knife, you know, just about any size. If I can get a knife under it, you know, I'll go ahead and strip that thing off, and I'll do it sitting down at my desk over there. I actually have it. A little situation where this is like a desk cover that I have, like a mouse, I don't know, big keyboard mouse pad flat thing, about a 1/4 inch thick, and I'll lay that rib right on that, kind of next to that rounded edge. But anyway, you can figure that out. A good way for you to do that if you decide you ever want to try this technique. So what I'll do, and this sounds kind of crazy, as part of my morning routine, you know, I'll wake up in the morning and pop that box out, and I'll lay them out like this. Now there are more leaves coming in from the garden. You know, every, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, I'll go out there and trim off any leaves that were starting to turn yellowish a little bit. You know, their plant might have been low on nitrogen or whatever the problem was. You know, if it's getting ready to dump a leaf, you know, I'll cut it off of there while it's still got some good stuff in it, and get them into here. Got some grasshopper eating stuff there. Grasshoppers were giving me hell out there. But yeah, so I'll pull them out and I'll lay them. I mean, welcome to Alio's world. You know, I'll lay them down on the bed like that, and might even turn the ceiling fan on and come back, you know, at the end of the day, end of the night, and I'll just grab my pink box. We'll be putting them back into the box. I'll go ahead and do that just for the heck of it. I'll probably end up leaving them out today, but I just kind of wanted to let you see what this is like. These things, they kind of fly. You grab a corner and whew, yeah. So yeah, compared to hanging them up, oh my God. It was, you can take a look at it. I'm going to have another video up there. You'll be able to see that hanging, the kind of the Cuban way. You know, they have these people that work in the Cuban tobacco cigar industry down there, and they showed how they string them up. You know, you can take, and what I did, you know, I took one of those plastic toothpicks with a fishing line tied on the end of it that's got the little, like little balls or something that you hold your finger on. But I made a toothpick size needle that I could thread through that stem. Had them all hanging up here. I was doing a lot more at one time. This way that I'm doing it, where I kind of, my unique situation here, where I'll lay them out on the bed when I want them to dry out some. Works good with the amount of crop that I had this year. Now, you know, once I get them in here, I mean, I probably could, you know, just leave them in there and let them kind of be like a little miniature humidor just inside their box. This is one of those little boxes that people use for, like if they're doing collages and cutting pictures out of magazines and stuff like that. And this is like a collage pieces box. I think it's a hobby box, and that's what it's for. But it just happened to fit the paper towels really nice, and they just, as you know, osmosis, they just humidify the air in there by themselves, and then they would kind of start fermenting and rotting, but there's a little bit of air between them and moving around, you know. So that's the paradox of this thing, is drying out but not drying out. So and after a while, you know, I'll figure, well, there's, you know, I could leave them in here for a few days, you know, maybe a week, you know. I'd pull them up and they'd be all turning weird colors and everything, and I'd lay them out to kind of check them out and let them, when you pull them out of their box and get them exposed to all that surface area, the air like that, you can actually get, you know, a decent amount of drying done. Kind of keep an eye on it, because if some of them start getting like crispy on the edges, or especially if it's green and getting crispy, drying out, it's going to get ruined, because, you know, once that happens to the green, it stops that fermenting process. You can't start it back up. So yeah, I guess that kind of wraps it up, and that's just about the whole world of it, except for, you know, pulling out the old pipe and get myself a little toot in there. I hope that works for you.